Hi everyone, it's Dawn and welcome. I think it's been 3 months or so since I checked in here and have been feeling this coming on for the last week or so. It is January the 12th, Sunday evening, January the 12th, 2019. So I hope that those of you who may run across this video are moving into the new energy of 2019 with great joy and with a freshness and an openness to all that's here for us. So I have been mulling over a couple of things for several weeks now, actually probably close to a month, and I couldn't quite figure out what it was about, so I didn't come on to make a video, and I still don't know what it's about. But I finally decided I'm just going to turn the camera on because it feels like a message that's meant for more than just me, and so I'm just going to, as I do, just sort of stumble through it, share a bit. I'll try to keep this not too terribly long, but I do want to read some from a passage that's been on my heart, and maybe I'll have some insight about why, and maybe not, but I do want to share that and be faithful to sharing the message. So I do hope that you are well. I know that I, for one, am still integrating some of the learning from 2018. I'm grateful for the opportunities to see see with fresh eyes and to feel at the heart level, to really experience fully both the wonder and mystery of this journey and also its beauty and depth. And that beauty encompasses everything, it's everything. That beauty is more than what we call beautiful. That beauty is everything. And so I hope that you can look back on your 2018, and I'm in the process of doing this. It's difficult. There were moments, for me, nothing, well, that's not true. I was about to say nothing dramatic happened. That's actually not true. Several things that were quite dramatic happened, and yet at the same time, they were intentional and purposeful and meaningful and beautiful. They were absolutely astounding, and yet it's difficult. This is part of my journey with you. Is I'm often not given the insight in terms of what things are about, and I'm walking through them with you and with all of us. We're on the way together, and so I hope that you are allowing yourself the space to receive in full the gifts and the offerings that this past year had to give to your heart, and that you are stepping into a whole new way of seeing yourself as we move forward together. This is in many ways, it's funny, I thought I missed the boat. Like, I thought the 3 years of 2016, 17, 18 were initially the years that I had in terms of, the play of light, the story of life, the revolution of love, like it was unfolding. And then we got to 2019 and it was all systems go, right? In 2019 to 2025, give or take a year, or most certainly through 2022 was going to be all, rapid progress in terms of individual and collective upliftment. So what I was really, when I talk about this in a sec about the red field and the green sky, this might come into play too. But what I was really shown is that this 2019 really being a year of the advent of light, and each one of us having the opportunity to bring forward our particular play of light in a much more grounded and practical way. I am in the midst of exploring that myself, and working. Yeah, they want me to say working and and playing, and I suppose I am. I've been so serious lately, and yet there is an element of play, curiosity, and wonder that are right there. They're right there for me. So I hope that you're sensing that too. So red field, green sky. About a month ago, had a series of moments where I had, an awareness of the longer, grander story of humanity's unfoldment, and there were these repeating images of the red field and the green sky, and then the green field and the red sky. And I still haven't pieced it all together, and I want to paint two paintings, one called Red Field, and Green Sky. I'll show it to you when I paint it because it's actually a little complex. I'm going to do two sets of two paintings, but I haven't quite gotten the paintings. They're still percolating inside me, and so maybe this video will assist me in painting those. But essentially, what I was shown was this red field, and that this this common pattern through all of the ages of the polarity that we has been animated here in the 3D, and the dark and the light and the battles and the bloodshed and the violence and the war and the lies and the deceit and the fighting back and the offense and the defense and all of that, and the division, right? The male and the female and the this or that. We could go on and on, but you get the idea here. And so I was shown the red field and the way that story has always played out. And then I was shown the red sky. Now, both of these had meaning for me in a couple of different ways. So I just want to share this in the event that it may resonate with someone out there, because for some reason I'm getting that this red field, green sky, green field, red sky is important to share. Not exactly sure on that, but in any case, the red field. So we're all familiar with the great battles that we have lived and have witnessed and have read about, and we continue to tell the story of. And above this red field, I saw in one dream in particular a green sky. Now, the green sky was sort of had multi-layered meanings. One, the green sky, you see when there's a tornado coming, you see the green sky, it turns this strange color, and it's a warning. And at the same time, the green sky in one of the dreams that I had was like, it was multiplying with shamrocks, and maybe that's because of my love of Ireland. But in addition, there was a feeling of renewal and hope that was coming forward, and the sky was growing bigger, and the red field was getting smaller. And then there was the opposite, which was the green field and the open field and a red sky, which at first I interpreted as ominous, but then I remembered, I found an image of a photograph that I had taken and altered because I was guided to do this, that was taken at Gethsemane, the monastery in Kentucky where Thomas Merton spent many years, and it was his beloved hill that he walked on. And there's a single tree. I'll try to find this picture and share it with you here. There was a single tree on the hill, and I was walking, there and talking with him, not in the physical, but and I love Central Kentucky, and so I was there, and the sky turned the strangest color, and it had like an amber red tone to it, and so I replicated that in this photograph that I altered. And so in my series of dreams / visions that occurred about a month ago, there was this red sky photo that was powerful, and it was over a green field, very open. And so I believe that this is related to this this latest 4 to 6 months that we have passed through, where there was certainly a quickening of the pace of awakening and a broader experience of that by more and more individuals, and a falling away of that which had held a grip on humanity, and a transitioning physically of some souls, and also a relinquishing of power that was kind of like time's up, and and it seemed to me anyway to be from on high. So this was the essence of these images that I received were about a transition and of learning and receiving all of the wisdom from both what has passed and what is to come, and where we are, most importantly, right now, and um, how those experiences. I'm struggling with the words here, but I'm hoping that somehow this is translating, and how those experiences inform each one of us individually and have been a shared story. And now we are moving into a time of co-creation and recreation, as I spoke about in the last video I made, the field of recreation. And that it's an amazing time, and it's a time where we see the layers that have in the past been disguised, more and more of us, not and see more and more layers. So where we're all at different points, and whereas some of us may have a greater awareness of certain layers, others of us have awareness of layers that somebody else who, say, seems to be ahead, if you want to, if we want to judge it in our human standards on the journey, doesn't get that layer. So we all have unique perspectives, and that's where we are right now. It's an unveiling, a revealing, a revelation. And I think what I want to do right now is go ahead and read the passage that I was strongly given, and this is the real reason I'm making this video, and see what comes from that. I haven't read it. I just was given it. It is in the book, the Gospel of Matthew, which those of you who know me well know that I rarely read. I mean, I'm not opposed to Matthew. I have read often from the Sermon on the Mount passages in the early part of the book of Matthew, but I typically draw from the Gospel of John and from a few other books from the Old Testament, Isaiah in particular, and Jeremiah, and then also from Hebrews, which is my favorite book. But this was very clear that to share with you Matthew, and I'm going to read chapter 15. The emphasis of this message is about chapter 16, but I want to read chapter 15 to set the stage. So I will do that right now. This is Matthew chapter 15, and I'll start with this, and we may take a break and speak a little bit. Then some Pharisees and teachers of the law came to Jesus from Jerusalem and asked, "Why do your disciples break the tradition of the elders? They don't wash their hands before they eat." Jesus replied, "And why do you break the command of God for the sake of your tradition? For God said, 'Honor your father and mother,' and anyone who curses their father or mother is to be put to death. But you say that if anyone declares that what might have been used to help their father or mother is devoted to God, they are not to honor their father or mother with it. Thus you nullify the word of God for the sake of your tradition. You hypocrites, Isaiah was right when he prophesied to you, 'These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are merely human rules.'" Jesus called the crowd to him and said, "Listen and understand. What goes into someone's mouth does not defile them, but what comes out of their mouth, that is what defiles them." Then the disciples came to him and asked, "Do you know that the Pharisees were offended when they heard this?" He replied, "Every plant that my heavenly Father has not planted will be pulled up by the roots. Leave them, they are blind guides. If the blind lead the blind, both will fall into the pit." Peter said, "Explain the parable to us." "Are you still so dull?" Jesus asked them. I'm sorry. He said that a lot. "Are you still so dull?" Jesus asked them. "Don't you see that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and then out of the body? But the things that come out of a person's mouth come from the heart, and these defile them. For out of the heart comes evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, slander. These are what defile a person, but eating with unwashed hands does not defile them." Leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him, crying out, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly." Jesus did not answer a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, "Send her away, for she keeps crying out after us." He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." The woman came and knelt before him. "Lord, help me," she said. He replied, "It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." "Yes, it is, Lord," she said. "Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Then Jesus said to her, "Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted." And her daughter was healed at that moment. Jesus left there and went along the Sea of Galilee. He went up on a mountainside and sat down. Great crowds came to him, bringing the lame, the blind, the crippled, the mute, and many others, and laid them at his feet, and he healed them. The people were amazed when they saw the mute speaking, the crippled made well, the lame walking, and the blind seeing, and they praised the God of Israel. Jesus called his disciples to him, and he said, "I have compassion for these people. They have already been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. I do not want to send them away hungry, or they may collapse on the way." His disciples answered, "Where could we get enough bread in this remote place to feed such a crowd?" "How many loaves do you have?" Jesus asked. "7," they replied, "and a few small fish." He told the crowd to sit down on the ground. Then he took the 7 loaves and the fish, and when he had given thanks, he broke them and gave them to the disciples, and they in turn to the people. They all ate and were satisfied. Afterwards, the disciples picked up 7 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate was 4,000 men, besides women and children. After Jesus had sent the crowd away, he got into the boat and went to the vicinity of Magadan. And then chapter 16. So Jesus gets on the boat after the miracle of one of the miracles of feeding the crowd. And chapter 16 begins this way. The Pharisees and Sadducees came to Jesus and tested him by asking him to show them a sign from heaven. He replied, "When evening comes, you say it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning, today it will be stormy, for the sky is red and overcast. You know how to interpret the appearance of the sky, but you cannot interpret the sign of the times. A wicked and adulterous generation looks for a sign, but none will be given it except the sign of Jonah." Jesus left them and went away. When they went across the lake, the disciples forgot to take bread. "Be careful," Jesus said to them. "Be on your guard against the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees." They discussed this among themselves and said, "It is because we didn't bring any bread." Aware of their discussion, Jesus asked, "You of little faith, why are you talking among yourselves about having no bread? Do you still not understand? Don't you remember the 5 loaves for the 5,000 and how many basketfuls you gathered? Or the 7 loaves for the 4,000 and how many basketfuls you gathered? How is it you don't understand that I was not talking to you about bread? Be on your guard against the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees." Then they understood that he was not telling them to guard against the yeast used in bread, but against the teachings of the Pharisees and Sadducees. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he ordered his disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, that he must be killed and on the 3rd day be raised to life. Peter took him aside again to rebuke him. "Never, Lord," he said, "this shall never happen to you." Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Then Jesus said to his disciples, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? What can anyone give in exchange for their soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he will reward each person according to what they have done. Truly, I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste of death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." So I'm going to pause there, and I trust that those of you who were meant to receive some of the words that were encoded, embedded in, and not just the words themselves, but the energetic truths that are right there in the Okay, I just needed a little moment there. I believe I was saying some of the energetic codes that are right there in that sequence of stories and events. And there's so much there. And I'm not a scholar, so I'm not going to go into some of what I have perhaps studied or know in terms of the analysis of the scripture and a passage there. But what I would like to do is to just point out a couple of things that popped for me as I was reading that, and that I had not read it in advance. Was so, of course, the red sky reference that that Yeshua spoke of. Like, you look at the sky and you see the meanings, right? Just as I was talking about the green sky, the red sky, the red sky, the green sky. And like sometimes that's what happens, right? We're all like, we're looking at this journey that each one of us has a unique story within the larger story of what's happening with those of us called to the path of sacred partnership, and then also just in humanity's evolutionary journey, and the raising of consciousness, the awakening, the ascension, whatever you would like to call that process that we are all invited into as we become more of who we are. We can very easily miss the point, and there can be others who come to us demanding a sign or proof or evidence, and there could also be we ourselves, in that inner disconnect that can happen between our human self, our ego, mind, and the more complete soul self, and so I certainly was drawn to his Yeshua's reference of the red sky and those who the Pharisees and Sadducees were the two religious groups of the time that were at war themselves, but both of them demanded this of Yeshua, who taught. Well, as the Apostle Paul used the words, a more excellent way, and Jesus certainly didn't approach things in a traditional manner, in a manner that was had the rubber stamp of society. And we find right now in our world that so much is being dismantled, and never more rapidly than in this last year. And still, those closest with him on this journey, the disciples, were, they either were clueless, and when they were getting close to it, they still did not understand the depth and Jesus would say to them time and time again, you have little faith. And then he gives Peter the keys to the kingdom, and says, whatever you loose on on earth will be loosed in heaven, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. And then there's so much here about guarding against the bread of or the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees, and of the day. So consider, consider this in terms of where we are right now in the world, and if you notice, there are moments here. One example would be the moment where Peter responds. Peter was so impulsive, and he responds, after saying this sort of daft thing, he responds with, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God," and Jesus says, "This was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven." And so there is a point that we are at with this awareness of the red sky, the red field, the green sky, the green field, the red sky. It's we know so much, we see so many more of the layers than we have perhaps seen before, and it can get it can send us on this mental journey, and the opportunity is always to return to the light of the heart and the Christ light that shines within, and to be aware and respectful of the true source of this last part where he says, "What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he will reward each person according to what they have done." And I want to actually see if I can get the computer over here. This painting here, this is from this summer. I went to England, and I can't remember the name of this castle at the moment. It's in the south of England, but the painting here is of a scene that unfolded that day. This castle was sort of like, I believe it was from the medieval period. I'm not positive about that, but anyways, an old castle. And this painting I called "Castle on a Hill, and in the Cloud a Chariot," or "In the Clouds a Chariot." So this here is the chariot form, and the yellow is the castle, and the green hills, green field, right? And that particular day, it was very interesting. The reason I wanted to show it to you is, as I was talking just now about the experience with on the hill with Merton and Thomas Merton, who was an American monk, and the red sky that I saw and then interpreted in the photograph. I was just realizing as I was describing that, oh my gosh, that's I said gush. Oh my goodness. When I was in England, that was this particular day, the sky, so it was like blue sky, beautiful clear day, and suddenly this massive cloud comes in right over the castle here. And there was definitely a series of energetic shifts that particular day. And so this painting was my capture of that. And the "In the Clouds a Chariot" idea seems very resonant for this time. I also want to point out, I may have referenced this already in this video, but the Transfiguration and the events that occurred there are the next chapter, when Jesus goes up a high mountain, and I'm likely going to share another video on that, so I'll leave that. But there is a time that we are entering into that is more mystical, and whereas there are so many things that have been prophesied or foretold that have unfolded, and again, some of us, myself certainly included, in this, we miss them, and we only understand a portion of that, and so much more is occurring now, and it is occurring from here, from within us, and that is something that I feel like I'll be back to talk a little bit more about the Transfiguration experience, and both in terms of the journey that Yeshua made. And, for me, that's always about that he came to show us how to live and how to walk this way in the light of God, and to remember who we are in that light, that we are one with that light and the life and the love that is God, that is inseparable from God. And when I use the term God, I don't mean a man in the sky, and I don't mean even the God only of Abraham and or the God of this person's understanding, or Allah, or you can go on and on and on. I mean the very breath of spirit that sustains us all, the breath of heaven. Recently, I was writing down, I was looking at the next 7 years in my life, and it's been a while since I've done any sort of looking ahead, and I don't, really do so much a formal plan. Like I used to be a planner, like let's write down our goals and let's, hit the mark. And that got kind of thrown out the window. And yet at the same time, I was really called back this year to really understand and take an assessment of where I am on my life's journey, and not in terms of what I wanted to accomplish or achieve, but rather who I am being and how I am living. And I'm in the middle of, I'm in the beginning of reevaluating and recreating my life and realigning it. And I think there's so much here for us. And for me, it's looking to the life of Jesus and the way that his light still shines upon us and into the world through us. He was the light of the world. He is the light of the world. Therefore, we are the light of the world. You are the light of the world. I am the light of the world. In this year, you have the opportunity, and I have the opportunity, to bring forward our particular play of light. And that light, make no mistake, is the light of God. It is a light that needs to be restored to the whole of humanity. The time of protecting our turf and drawing lines to keep others out, or to protect what we perceive to be ours, to own, we perceive ourselves to own. That time is passing, and it will be no more. The time of the red field and the green sky has passed, and it will be no more. And in some ways, the time of the green field and the red sky is passing, and it will be no more. I'm not sure what that means, but I do know that from within each one of us, we are given the opportunity. The keys to the kingdom we have been given. And the question is, what will we do with it? Will we remember? Will we remember that in the sky there is a chariot, in the clouds a chariot? Will we remember that we are the light of the world, that we have come to walk in the way of wholeness, that we have an opportunity to say yes to the whole of our lives and to give it up as an offering to God? So I think I will just pause there and come back at some point, and it may be tomorrow, or it may be months from now, or possibly years from now, I don't know, but come back with a word, if I'm given that, to share about the Transfiguration, or perhaps about something else. So thanks so much. It's been great to connect with you, and I will be considering these things in my heart, and I hope that you will as well. Much love.